This time, we will tackle about Unit 5, the logic of relations. So since we are done with lesson 5.1, talking about singular propositions and general propositions, let's move on to lesson 5.2, where we need to talk about arguments involving relations. So in this lesson, no new principles to be introduced in dealing with relational arguments. So call all those rules that we had already discussed, which are the 19 rules of inferences, strengthened method of conditional proof, or the rule of conditional proof, RCP, the quantification rules, quantifier negation. So the following enables us to construct a formal proof of validity for every valid argument in which variables are quantified and only true functional connectives occur. Okay. However, in this lesson, we are advised also to try to work with arguments involving relations that we must also try to change some techniques in order for us to come up or to validate certain arguments. So unlike on the previous sample proofs that we have, those sample proofs and demonstrations that we usually used UI and EI. So UI meaning universal instantiation, and existential instantiation to instantiate, meaning we drop the quantifier, and UG and EG meaning universal generalization and existential generalization, where we used to quantify, meaning adding quantifier, no, we do inferences in or express our inferences on the following forms, like x fx, therefore fy, or it is in the same form, result as the following. So this is on this form. Okay, but our statement of quantification rules does not require that u and v be different variables. So no, there are some arguments that u and v does not require that they are different. Okay, they may well be the same. Possible they could be the same. It is simpler to instantiate or dropping of quantifiers. So instead of naakay there exists fx, so when you quantify that one, so mahimo na lang ng fx, you drop the our quantify, there exists x. Okay, and quantify, when you say quantify, we add quantifier with respect to the same variable. So in this is also simpler if we quantify or quantified with respect to the same variable that had been free in the premise. So that's why the inferences that is being shown earlier may also take the following forms. Okay, so example, let's just say we have two premises illustrated, given that so there exists fx, ang usa ka premise nato is there exists not fx. Okay, so begin with the use of EI or existential instantiation, since there exists ang naa sa atong premise. So ang proof ana is EI, dropping the quantifier. So mahimo na ning fx. Both premise subsequently use EI. A new variable must be used instead of x. So y. Okay? So for the reason that the first premise already have free occurrence in the proof under construction. So naa naman siya sa atong premise daan. Then, but remember that we can still perfectly free to use UI or universal instantiation. So katong for all x to instantiate with respect to any variable or constant we choose. So the preceding remarks can be illustrated by constructing a proof of validity for the argument. So let's have more examples. Here, there is a man whom all men despise. Therefore, at least one man despises himself. Let me change. So before that, we must express the following translation or use mx to abbreviate x is a man, and dxy abbreviating x despises y. So to symbolize our argument, please do understand it word by word. So there is meaning there exists, so we will use existential. There is a man, so mo nang x atong gibutang diha. There exists x. So representing a man, we will use x is a man, so mx. Whom kani siya nga man, so and. Usa siya ka man, no, nga kani si siya, all men despise. Mao nang ato gibutang dag and. Okay? To continue, all, no, whom, all, so meaning universal. So we will represent that one since we are talking another person, no, another person. So we will use y. Okay, kaya ning exist naman si x, ning represent naman siya sa man. So ang other person, we will use it as y, or represent it as y. Then wala sa there exists kay all man siya, meaning we will use universal quantifier. Katong sa last lesson, previous lesson, for all, inverted a, so we can express it as I said earlier, y nga gi-enclose o parenthesis. Men, so ang man kay x raman, no, a man. Ang men ron, we will use it as y. Y is a man. Okay? So unsa may relationship nila, so this all men despise. So meaning to represent that one, despise, kinsa nag-despise si y, no, kinsa gidespisean, tama ba nga term? So si x. Okay, y despise x. All men despise man, that man, particular man. So we will use horseshoe or the symbol for implies. Oops. Okay, so how about the bottom part or our conclusion? That is our premise, this is our conclusion. Therefore, at least one man, at least meaning there na at least na ay usa, so there exists gapon that there exists x, we are talking that man, so mo nang there exists x, one man, meaning we will represent that man as mx, di ba mo man diri asa tong pag-symbolize. And that man despises himself. So the symbol for despise is d. Kinsa yung despise kana nga man, kinsa ijang gidespisean ang ijang kaugalingon. So meaning dxx. Okay, so our complete premise and the conclusion for that will be there is a man whom all men all men despise. Therefore, at least one man despises himself. So from this sentence form nga argument nato, na symbolize or na translate nato siya using symbols. So to prove that one, to have our proof of validity, so what are the things to do here? Unsa may pwede natong ma-work nanawon nato sa atong from our premise and our conclusion. So we can first is we can do the process of existential instantiation, since existential maning naa diri ang quantifier nato sa first. So atong gi-drop na, gi-remove na nato. So let's just say gi-remove na nato, mao nang ni-come up ta ani kani ang nabilin. Okay, the reason for that is EI, right? Next, simplification rule nato, since we have another quantifier here, we can drop that one kani for all y. So we have here my, no, kani may atong nabilin, gidrop nato na siya using UI, kay UI man ni universal. So universal instantiation, since we drop the quantifier of 3. Okay, now nahibilin, tanawa, observe that nag-change ta, instead of y diha sa babaw, atong gi-change mo ni ang giingon dinina from the start, that in this particular lesson we are told to, or we are advised to have change of techniques, no? Kay ang atong target diri dapat it should be x man, so we can change y into x. Okay, meaning atong gikuan nga x and y are just the same, no? Kay pwede nato siyang ma-substitute as x. Okay, so all y here sa 3 nahimo na natong x, since we have to end up that there exists at least one man that despises himself. Okay, so what to do next is, so unsa may ito mabuhat na arong mabilin ang dxf. So we can recall that we can use modus ponens, no? The premise implies conclusion. If we affirm our premise, the result is affirming our conclusion. So asa man ni nato possible makuha si mx? Recall sa number 2 nga nay mx din naa, right? Then we can do again simplification. Okay, and simplification. So nakakuha na ta, or we obtain mx already. Since we affirm the premise of number 4, so let's affirm the result will be affirming our conclusion. So the reason for that is using the modus ponens of 4 and 5. Okay, so next is conjunction. Since we have the 2, 5 and 6, so we can conjunct them, right? So maanay ang reason is conjunction of 5 and 6. Okay, and then quantifying. So we add quantifier, so arong kuha dyan na tong conclusion sa atong given argument. Okay, by using there exists x, no? So e.g. existential generalization of 7. Okay, so now that proves na ato nang na-obtain na nato ang validity sa atong argument. Okay? That is, the reason is EI of 1, then 2 to 8. Ano siya? Muna ang ijang arrow, gikan dito sa babaw, padunas, ubos. Ang reason, mao nang naka-obtain ta aning there exists mx, therefore, meaning at least one man despises himself. So in the foregoing proof, the only use of quantification rule accompanied by a change of variable, so na change of technique nga itong gibuhat, which is changing the variable, was the use of UI asa ganito diri nga part kana nga part more than 9 nagamit ang quantification rule nga giapila nato or giugna nato nga naay pag-change sa variable using UI, okay, or universal instantiation. So this was done because we needed the expression dxx para ma-obtain na kailangan ni nato mabuhat diri na naatay mag-change ta og variable. Last example, all horses are animals. Therefore, the head of a horse is the head of an animal. So we will use the following translation or abbreviation. EX will represent it as X is a horse. Next, we have AX. X is an animal. Next, so atong anam-anamon o translate word by word ang atong statement. All horses, that means universal. So we will express it as kana for all X kay horse. Then EX kay X is a horse. So for all X, EX implies ang relationship implies AX. Okay, meaning all horses are animals. So that is the premise. For the conclusion, the head of a horse is the head of an animal. Okay, the word the has the same sense that it does in such prepositions as, remember, the whale is an animal or the burnt child dreads the fire. So now, in this sense, we can paraphrase our conclusion. Okay, we can paraphrase it as all heads of horses are heads of animals. Expressing it to symbols, all heads, all meaning generalization, X is a head of a horse implies X is a head of an animal. So in symbol, for all X, EY, there exists Y, okay, that EY and head of a horse. So HXY, X is a head of a horse. Okay, EY represent Y is a horse. Okay, so and CX is the head of Y. Mana implies that there exists Y, that AY, so Y here is an animal and X is the head of the animal. Okay, so this is now the complete translation into symbol from our sentence form nga argument. Okay, in proving that one, so maani siya ang given ganina, ang premise ug ang conclusion. To obtain the premise and the conclusion, mao na ni. Number 2 is obtaining it. We obtain this one by using the rule of conditional proof by taking the premise of the conclusion. Remember, katong naghisgot tag RCP or the strengthened rule of conditional proof, that instead of using this one, dili na nagamit. Okay? So, kani nga premise atong gitake by universal instantiation, atong gidrop ni nga quantifier. Ato na lamang gi-remain si kana. Okay? So, meaning, ang atong target nga makuha, kani siya. Ma-conclude ang katapusan. Okay? Now, what we have done here is na nag-drop na putag another quantifier from 2. So, nahibilin si AY and HXY. So, okay? By EI gihapon. For number 4, we can do EY simplifying out number 3. Okay? Now, 5, ato nang gigamit ni UI, meaning dropping quantifier x or for all x, and then we have a change of variable as well, since instead of x we have y here. Okay, implies ay. Okay, next, so ay ang result din na because we use 5 and 4 by modus ponens. So, affirming our premise, then the result is affirming our conclusion. For 7, why is it HXY? Because it comes from 3. Simplifying. So, atong gikuha si HXY. Okay. Number 8, let's proceed. We can conjunct 6 and 7. That's why we have here AY and HXY. And then, next process is, since we have already this one, kanina na may wa. So, we can obtain that one by EG, meaning existential generalization of 8. So, then, by that proof, steps of proving the validity of our argument, so by EI, existential instantiation of 2 to 3 to 9, we come up with our conclusion. Okay? And lastly, by conditional proof of 2 to 10, okay, mo nang naka-obtain ta ani kaning nga part diha. And lastly, by UG, universal generalization of 11, okay, sa 11 nato, ato na dyan na finalize, ato na ning na-obtain the entire conclusion sa atong argument. Okay, hope the learning task we have here, construct a formal proof of validity for each of the following arguments. Okay, thank you and God bless all.